Welcome to Inside Quest. We're the tow-in line for your mind. Our goal is to bring on really amazing people who can help you surf your brainwaves. And if you're looking to ride the impossible giants of your imagination, there's absolutely no better guest than the man joining us today. Considered by many to be the greatest surfer of all time, he has tackled some of the largest waves in the world and has single-handedly redefined what people believe to be possible in the world of surfing. Not content at all to accept the physical limitations that defined the sport prior to his arrival, this artist on the ocean has defined himself not only as one of the most unbelievable athletes on the planet, but as an innovator extraordinaire. In order to master bigger and bigger waves, he's developed some of the most radical technological breakthroughs in the sport, cementing his status as an explorer. That's what's cool, an explorer who's hell-bent to reset the perceived limitations of human potential itself. Surf Magazine called him the sport's test pilot. I love that. And one video clip of him hydrofoiling down the face of a monster wave that honestly looks like it's trying to kill him, and I mean kill him dead. And you know instantly that this man is playing a whole different game. The Washington Post called him the world's greatest athlete, and when you factor in that he rides waves the size of skyscrapers, has broken countless bones, had 125 stitches in his head, been lost at sea, and still keeps pushing the boundaries of the sport into his 50s, it's not hard to understand why. And let's remember, he's done all of that, by the way, without ever once entering into a professional competition. He has shown that human life, even when it's lived at the extremes, even when it's lived on the world stage, it's not about beating somebody else. It's about being fulfilled with your own artistic expression. And to get such a meditative answer from the badass who refused anesthesia during his hip replacement surgery, yes, that's correct, no anesthesia, he was awake for his hip replacement surgery, it gives the notion the appropriate amount of gravitas. So please help me in welcoming the man who co-created, along with his astonishingly accomplished wife, Gabrielle Reese, extreme performance training known as XPT. He's the innovator. He is the legendary big wave rider himself, Laird Hamilton.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. What a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
It's going to be hard to live up to that intro.
I've seen the videos. I don't think it's going to be hard at all. I want to ask you about fear, man. I would expect one of two things in your rhetoric, right? That you'd be like, I don't have fear, it's all good. Or just that you wouldn't acknowledge it. But you don't. You talk pretty openly about fear. You talk about that there is fear. So what's your relationship to fear, and how do you keep it from overwhelming you? I mean, the waves you ride they're crazy. 80 to 100 feet, right? It's the biggest?
Yeah.
And that really is a skyscraper. Like, that's not hyperbole.
Yeah, no. Well, not a big skyscraper, but it's
it's only 10 stories.
But we're limited by what, the ocean produces. So that's our.
So you would go bigger if you could.
Yes, please.
Wow. It's incredible.
No, but that's obviously fear is a topic that is always, that is in the forefront of any extreme sport athlete. And I always, at one point there was a company called No Fear, and I was like, no fear for me means no brain. I equate fear to reverence, to respect, that fear is acknowledging and understanding the situation, and then we shift to what fear does. So fear in its proper position makes us smarter, makes us assess things faster, makes us stronger, makes us have more endurance. You see fear in nature, it's very effective. The gazelle gets away a lot,
Yeah,
and
sure.
so fear is a tool. And I think that once you have a relationship with fear, then it changes the dynamic of the way it affects you. And obviously, fear of a giant wave is a lot different than fear of Gabby. I'm scared of Gabby.
Yeah.
Well, the wave, I kind of know what it's going to do.
You can deal with that. That's hilarious. So how do you develop a relationship with fear? Like, how does it not become panic? Like, I can't imagine. Like, I've been in the ocean, right? You start drifting out too far, there is an ominous sense of power. So how do you keep it from escalating?
Well, I think it's built over time. You know, at one point I remember, at least I was told that I was rescued like weekly where I grew up as a young kid, 3-4 years old, sucked out in the riptide, or you know, enough so I was good enough that I could keep my head above the water, not good enough to swim back. Probably by the time I was, you know, 7 or 8 or 9 years old, I could get back to the shore. But in the beginning, I would get sucked out to sea, and then I'd get rescued. And I thought, imagine how scared I was then.
Sure.
And so if you start with that, and then you keep growing that, you know, it's like you look at somebody and you go, wow, look how high they are. But if you just watch every step they took to get there, you went, well, not one of them was a high step. Everyone was just a step. But when you add all the steps together, at the end, the final destination is altitude. And so I think fear is the same way. I think once you've kind of, you know, acclimated to it and you have a relationship with it, it changes its dynamic. It becomes a different tool, and which is really implemented into any aspect where you're scared. Because there is a difference between fear and being scared, you know, and being scared is something that maybe takes you out of being able to do the right thing, being able to actually react. Where fear is you understanding that there's danger, and then using the reactions of your body that from that situation to excel, to perform better, to be smarter, to see better, to evaluate. And so, you know, and then instinct starts to play and become, I think sometimes that instinct is actually developed fear, that instincts are something that are connected to a fear-based process. And then eventually pretty soon you start to be able to kind of sense fear before it even happens and stuff like that. But it all becomes a very primitive concept going back. I have a tendency to do that. I go back caveman a lot. That's my normal process.
You and I are going to have a lot of fun, because that to me, that's really fascinating, because I find once you understand what's going on, then you can have a relationship with it, right? You can use it to your advantage. You can put it in its proper place. I mean, all the words you're using, like, they really, really make sense to me. But I've never differentiated between fear and being scared. Talk to me more about that, and take it to caveman if you can.
Well, I mean, being scared is you're in a situation that you don't have an idea what to do.
That's interesting.
It's dangerous. You know that, but you don't necessarily have a reaction. So then maybe your reaction is no reaction, which at that point would be fatal. Like you're standing there and here comes a bus and it's going really fast and you're in the middle of the street and you're going, wow, that bus is going really fast. And you don't go, I better jump out of the way. You go, wow, that bus is going really fast. Oh my God. And then it just goes boom and runs you over. That I call that being scared. I'd say fear is I'm in the middle of the street and here comes a bus and I'm like, wow, that bus is going really fast. I better get out of the way quick. And then I'm like, wow, it's super fast. I'll go now, kind of thing. So it's a reaction. I think fear is a reactionary based emotion, and being scared is it's like the deer in the headlights where you just freeze, and then sometimes that's actually helpful, I think, to survive, not doing anything, because doing something incorrect sometimes actually speeds up the failure sooner.
Right. Yeah. I heard somebody say, if it really is a lion in the bush and you freeze, you're probably better off, because if they haven't seen you, your only chance of survival is non-motion. So it's really interesting. You get why we have the fight, freeze, or flee response. Yeah. But what's really interesting to me is you make it sound like through practice, repetition, whatever, we can actually train it. So I'm reading between the lines. Tell me if this is actually true, or if I just want it to be true so badly, that you could start being scared, and through training, turn that being scared into fear, an actionable state.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know how you couldn't. I don't know how you wouldn't be able to turn it into an actionable state through practice. Because first of all, the first time you're in a situation that's scary or dangerous, it's overwhelming. The second time, it's still overwhelming, just a little less than the first time. And so on. And so as we go, and we're in it for the 1,000th time or the 10,000th time, pretty soon we're looking around going, oh yeah, this is that dangerous situation. Now what do I do? And da-da-da and all that stuff, where you're not just going like that, wondering what's going to happen. So absolutely a learnable skill, and something that we're not forced into. I think that in a more primitive environment in our in our past that we didn't have the luxury not to have the skill. We had it from the very beginning. We evolved it from the start, but we've kind of gotten neutered in our, sensory perception, our ability to handle being in dangerous environments and so on, because we've kind of killed everything dangerous or put it in a cage.
Right. Very true. One interviewing thing that I often do when people have kids is I'll say, like, okay, translate that to your kids. What would you do for them? Because then it sort of gets out of the abstract and it becomes very real.
Well, first of all, Gabby and I are not little league parents, so we're not like, you're going to do that. We don't do that at all. It's really exposure to all the different things, and I always quote the movie The Jerk. It's one of my favorites, and I say, you need to find your special purpose. So,
right.
and whatever that is, because like Gabby and I talk about, it's really important to find something that brings you fulfillment. And if you find something that you're really passionate about, then you will have the capacity to be fulfilled. If you don't, then you'll be trying to buy things to fulfill you, and we see how that does not work. As a parent, I think my objective would really be to raise content humans.
I've heard you say that before, and I think that's so powerful. I've never heard anyone say content before. You're going to hear happy a lot, but content to me is different. What is it? How'd you come to that, and how do you get them there?
Contentment is an overall feeling, right?
Sure.
It's something that's at night, in the morning. It's you live contentment. Happiness you get on certain times at certain moments. So if you're content, you'll have a lot of happy moments.
Right.
And I would describe contentment as something that's more holistic than happy. Happy can be like, I'm happy because I, did something that brought me this feeling of happiness. Where contentment is something that, is connected to, why you're here. Like, I'm content, and because I found the reason why I'm here. Like, why are we all here? Like, and somebody might be here just to paint. That might be their thing that brings them a purpose, and that's contentment for me. Happy is I sold one of my paintings for $1 million. That's not content. That's happy.
Right.
Content is I really love to paint, and that brings me this feeling of wellness. And this feeling of accomplishment and all of these things.
Yeah, that's really spot on. I think considerably about what I call framework happiness, which may be very similar to what you're talking about, being something, becoming something, having a vision that you're trying to build for yourself that isn't transient, right? So one of the things in my life that I get the most fulfillment out of is actually one of the things I enjoy the least, which is working out. So I'm not a big fan of working out, but I do it 5 days a week, sometimes more, because of what it does for me. One, I believe it to be important, and I'm grateful that I have the discipline to see it through, and the self-narrative that it gives me about the guy, that even though I don't enjoy it, I do it because I want an outcome from it, and I have the ability to see that through. So that's a framework happiness, right? And to your point about money, that one I really hope people hear is money can't give you that, right?
No.
But if you generate wealth in service of others, and then if part of your plan for that wealth is to continue to do amazing things for others, to control your own destiny, to bring something that you believe is beautiful into the world, then it can all be tied. But if it is this abstract notion, it's like the fact that you don't compete, right? And this really hit me, man. So one, I didn't know that you'd never competed.
A lot of people don't. They think, oh, you're a professional surfer. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that means I make money from it, but they correlate that with competition.
So when I heard your reasoning, I was really blown away. These people may not have heard your reasoning yet. It would be awesome. Why don't you compete?
First of all, I hate losing.
It's very
So
honest.
if I never play, I don't lose.
Right.
Competition, I found brought the worst out of me.
Really?
The thing that I was trying to learn how to deal with, which was aggression. It seemed to bring that out of me, and I was trying to figure out how to get it out of me, and it seemed to bring it in and make me more aggressive. And the fact is that I realized that I'm more of an artist than I am a competitor, and I think there's a saying that goes something like, "A competitive man is fulfilled by beating others, but a creative man is fulfilled by accomplishments." And so I realized that I'm more of a creative man, and that for me to accomplish something, is more important than me beating another guy, and connecting my outcome to their success or failure, and not me being the best. Because you can go into a competition and you can win and not be the best you, but the other guy was even worse him, and you win.
Right.
And that, for me, I would find that rather confusing. But because I'm not a competitor, as a competitor, I would be like, yeah, I beat him.
Right.
Even though, because he sucked, but I still won. So, you know.
Yeah, it's every now and then you come across somebody in the world who's so good at what they do that even when their advice is just super counterintuitive or their insight is counterintuitive, it really hits you because of their stature. Now, if you were out there and you were sort of a middling surfer and you were saying, I don't compete, and you were trying to give me the speech about how it's not about competition, it's not about beating them, I'd be like,
Yeah,
because I would just think, it's right, it's just the first part, you don't want to lose.
Yeah.
But that was one of those parts in really getting to know you that I stopped in my tracks and I was like, wait a second. So this guy is doing, so not only are you considered the world's greatest surfer, which is already, that's just bonkers. To even be like considered, right, is crazy. But when I watch, just objectively, from my position, what you do is dangerous, like for real dangerous, not like pretend dangerous. If you mess up, like that's it. You actually have an awesome quote about that. I really hope I wrote it down. I did. My competition was, you're stuck in a rip current, you don't make it, you drown. You just go to death. And that's why I'm still here, because I survived it. And I was like, this guy thinks his competition is death. Like that's who I'm competing against. And I thought, God damn.
Well,
like,
aren't we all then? But aren't we all?
In a little bit.
But
like,
aren't we all? But aren't we all?
Not like you.
But we all are.
Yes.
That's honesty. That to think that you're not in competition with death, and you're in life, that would be bad assessment. I'd be scared.
You're kind of fucking with me right now. That's such a good point. That's a really good point. So thank you for really giving me something to think about. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about, I'm watching you come down these crazy big waves. And here's a guy who's saying, I'm an artist. And then I start listening to your interviews and I start realizing he's consistent with that. Like you really talk about, I want to find fulfillment in myself. This is a more or less solo sport. I go out there and I want to feel a certain way. I want to create a feeling. I want to create something with that day. And I think I have it. I prepare my whole life for one moment. I will prepare 50 years for one ride. And I thought, wow, like when it's about creative expression, when it's about bringing something into this world for yourself to experience it and to do such an experiential art, because I think when people think artistic, they think if there's no canvas left behind or no movie, no book, that they can't quite make that make sense. I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu exactly once, but I did it with a man named Firas Zahabi, who's one of the most incredible human beings I've ever met in my life. And in those 2 hours with him, I realized, whoa, you can creatively express yourself physically. And I had never experienced that until that moment. So hearing you say that at the extremes that you say it, man, that's so powerful. How can you get people to understand that there's a world beyond what they think they can experience?
Like good parenting, leading by example.
Right.
A little bit of showing like, this is what we're capable of. We can do this thing. We can, you know, you can believe that you can do things you haven't seen, and that, you know, these things are possible, and that philosophical approach that you can implement into your life, into a simple situation. I think that's one, you know, the most effective way. I mean, I take people through experiences, but you know, if I have to be the gateway to it, that means there's a limited amount of people that are going to be able to experience that. Where if I can do things that can touch people's imagination in a bigger way, and then philosophically show them an approach that they can actually try to implement it, I can touch a lot more.
What do you get out of being in the water, surfing big waves? What has it done to you?
Well, I mean, first of all, the ocean's the master teacher. So if you want to talk about lessons of life and you know, I mean, the ocean is the king. An incredible relationship with nature, which when you have an intimate relationship with nature and you become part of it. It becomes part of you, and you want to almost believe that waves come to you and skies part for you, and that there's realness to it, and definitely, at the top of the list will be sense of purpose. Why I'm here, other than, an incredible family, which is, at the apex of the whole thing. It's that, like when I put my head on the pillow after being there and doing that, I'm good. I sleep well, and again, I think that's something that's very elusive in our ever evolving world. It's a hard thing for us to find. We're searching for it in a lot of different ways, and I'm so fortunate to have that.
Marie Forleo taught me something really powerful, and that was there are two types of experiences: those that make you contract and those that make you expand. I'm not a frou-frou guy. I'm really not. I really dig hard science. But I think there's something to that, and maybe it's just because I can't explain it yet with science.
That's really probably the case.
Right? Great. And I'm all for that, because what I really care about is that experience, right?
For sure.
I don't care whether it has an explanation or not. It was just when you were talking about like sitting out in the water, and I want to believe that the sky has opened up for me, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want to believe that this wave is coming for me. I'm using my language now, so forgive me. I don't know how you'll interpret this, but like all those things, I want them so badly to be true, and I know how cheesy it is, but like when I meditate and I use gratitude, for a minute, I just completely let those things expand me, and I believe that that's real, right? I believe that the clouds parted and the sun is shining on me for a reason. I believe that wave came up for a reason. And I allow myself to indulge in that, but it's super real. And it's something that I try to capture in my life.
Yeah.
And those moments are incredibly fleeting. And it was a thing that, and when I say getting to know you, I mean research, right? I research you. In getting to know you, that I did not see coming. Like, I didn't see how spiritual this is for you. How'd you tap into that? And I'll preface that. You've said if people come to the ocean aggressively, she will respond in kind.
Absolutely.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is from my own experiences. Whenever I approach it with aggression, I give you a quick anecdote. Just a guy that provokes me, and I see him, and he just provokes me. I can't help it, and I was very provocable that day, and I just was and I see the guy, and within 1 second, it's like the next wave comes, hits me, I fall, the board hits me, the board goes all the way in, I'm swimming, and about halfway in, I'm like, oh yeah, cultivating that stuff, aren't you? It's just like, it's uncanny when you see some of these younger surfers coming up, really good surfers, that the best ones, the guys that are the truly magic ones, are very monkish. There's a stillness and a thing about them, and there's some exceptions to the rule, but there's a thing that the ocean, it's the way the ocean has honed them. And they say that the ocean is the most conductive element on Earth, which means it's energy. It conducts energy. So You bring aggression, it brings aggression. You bring peace and love, it brings peace and love. But it's very consistent, and it's very reliable, and it's the magic. It's the thing that's the unseen that we just don't have the science for, that you instinctually know. And I think a big part of what's happening is that we're so disattached from nature that we actually live that way, although that we were always that way, purely that way. That moment, that aha moment, we were in the aha moment forever. And then we got knowledge, and then we started making things, and then we just slowly went further and further and further away from a life of being present, a life of just being.
Let me ask, are there ways out of the water that you're able to capture that?
Well, yeah, that's where athletics comes in. I think people don't realize that a lot of times sports are really active meditation, running and cycling, and places where you put yourself in a physical state of such demand that you're able only to be present. There within it lies.
Talk to me about that. You do Ride Across America, which is crazy, by the way. Explain to people what Ride Across America is, and then walk us through what you're going through mentally as you do that.
Well, the Race Across America is, it's like a 24-hour bike race across the country, and you ride. In my case, when I did it, we were with 4 guys, but we did a 24-hour relay paddle to start the race on our own, just as some other kind of sickness to add to the already difficult situation.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like the way we roll, but I've always been attracted to those long endurance things because of the state that it puts you in. I mean, it also brings you a feeling of accomplishment when you're finished. You're like, yeah, I pedaled my bicycle from London to the cliffs of Dover, and then we did one in Hawaii where we did every island and every channel consecutively in 5 days. So we, 125-mile bike, 40-mile paddle, 100-mile bike, 30-mile paddle, 100-mile bike.
Wow.
80-mile paddle. I mean, we
80-mile paddle?
88, yeah. 88 miles. It took 22 hours. That's stupidity. That's just, yeah. So, I mean, at the end, I think it's, I think those are the physical ways to get into these other places. And lately we've been doing a lot of breath work.
Yeah, you're working with Wim Hof, right?
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. Amazing.
For people who don't know who Wim Hof is, tell them, just give them a smidgen of a background.
Well, he's really teaching people how to meditate using breathing and oxygenate their system and be able to fight germs. And they do a study with him where they eject him with E. coli, and then he does these breathing drills.
What?
And then he has no side effects, and they say, okay, you're a freak. And then they bring 10 people in. He trains them for a week. They go into the place, they inject 10 people with E. coli. They all do the breathing, and at the end, I think one person has a headache. And that's to show that oxygen and how powerful oxygen is in the system and how powerful breathing is. And so, but we've been using it for performance enhancement, like for athletics and then recovery and a bunch of other things. But incredible for meditation.
Yeah, Wim Hof is one of those guys that, again, like you, if I hadn't seen the studies done on this guy, you'd just be like, nah, there's no way, like that doesn't make sense. But they've put him in buckets of ice for like 45 minutes, which by the way would cause hypothermia in the normal person, they'd be dead. They measure his core temperature, and he can actually keep his core temperature up.
He's proving scientifically that you can consciously control the autonomic.
It's crazy. Like that to me, that's my drug. Right? Of somebody saying, oh, hey, these things that you thought were impossible, they're not impossible, and you can train your way to get to them. Like, that's all I need to hear. I just need to know that
possible.
No matter where I'm starting, right? That doesn't matter. It's what price are you willing to pay to get where you want to go? And then you either put in the work or you don't. But
cry about it later, yeah. Well, and the thing that's great is when you have, unfortunately, monkey see, monkey do. Monkeys are good at when they see somebody do it. So when you have examples like Wim, you go, oh yeah, that's tangible. I can do that. As soon as that happens, then hundreds can do it. Yeah. It's just breaking that barrier. You get one guy to break it for you, and then it's just everybody can run in and wow, look at the way we can do this, and it's which is great. I mean, it's. You
talked about that with your own surfing. It was like the 4-minute mile.
Yeah. The 4-minute mile was no one could break the 4-minute mile for I don't know how many years. First guy breaks it, next year 27 people break it.
It's crazy.
It's just, once they knew it was possible, because it shows you the power of thought.
It's interesting how few people really think about that. How have you stayed so hungry? Like, you've continued to innovate, you've continued to push the sport. How have you stayed hungry enough to do that? Like, what's left for you?
Well, I think I've set out, not at the very beginning, but kind of early on, to not lose or as I like to say, retain your youthful enthusiasm, but not lose my love for surfing. I thought, if I look at my life and I'd say if I stopped loving surfing and stopped wanting to do it, for me, I would describe that as sin. I would think that would be a sin.
Because you believe that you could do things to cultivate that love and keep it fresh and going.
Absolutely.
That's interesting, because in my head I'm not thinking, oh, how do I keep surfing fresh for me, because it's not an interest, but I'm thinking, how do I keep my marriage fresh? That's something I think a lot about, right? Like that I think love, like anything, whether it's love for surfing or love for your spouse, if you don't cultivate keeping it fresh, keeping it energetic, that it will ultimately dissipate. So it's very useful to hear the ways that you do that.
Well, it means, appreciating it. First of all, appreciating what a wonderful thing it is, what an incredible thing. I pinch myself all the time going, wow, think about the act of riding a wave. Who thought that up? And the fact that we are able to get out in the middle of the ocean and get on these virtually, they're energy waves, they're energy traveling through water that we get on, and we stand on these things and we fly down them and ride them. It's some pretty awesome stuff.
I love the way you think about that.
It's like, that's some pretty magic stuff. Well, it's like, who makes that stuff up? And the fact that we can do it is incredible. And then the variation of it. And listen, I've had the blessing and the fortune to do it the way I want, when I want, how I want. And that's another reason why the competition avoidance. Because one thing I know I hate is people telling me what to do. So if the guy goes, go out, we'll tell you when to come in, and then we'll tell you how you did.
Right. Not going to sit well with you. Yeah.
Bad scenario. Because at some point, I'm not going to want to go out. He's going to tell me to go out. I'm not going to want to come in. He's going to tell me to come in. Right. And then I'm not going to like what the outcome is. So it's all a setup, right? So at the end, I'm like, I'm good. I don't need that setup. I want to be a little more in control of my destiny.
Sure.
Like I want to drive my car and be like, wow, I sucked today, and and I went out when I didn't want to, and I came in when I should have or shouldn't. I mean, all of that stuff. I just want to be in charge more. I believe, listen, at a certain point, there's a formulaic process to everything, right? In life. I think there's less formulas than we give the world credit. I think we create complexity to disguise imperfection. And the formulas are very few and very simple. And so in a way you implement these formulas of success or into your relationship, into a sport, into your business. And I'd be real surprised if you weren't successful, or if you take everybody that's successful in a relationship, in a sport, in a business, and you dissect what their formula is. I bet all the formulas pretty much look the same. I mean, each one has its own color and its own texture, but at the end, the structure of it is the same. So I think that there within lies the beauty of it. That really, in true design, in optimum design, there's a simplicity that is magic.
Yeah, I love the way you think about things. And as you were talking, I was thinking that you really think about this. Like these are not idle thoughts. This is stuff clearly that's occurred to you before. You've thought about it, you've reprocessed it, had new experiences, processed it again through the new lens. And I really believe that that's a hallmark of people that truly gain success. And then I want to go back to something you said, because I think it takes so much courage, and it's not something people think takes courage, but to do things the way you want, when you want, how you want, is one of the most ballsy things I can think of. Like, we all want to fit in, right? We want to be at the competition and win first place. Yeah. We want the adoration. We want acceptance, exactly. We want acceptance, acknowledgement. Yeah. The thought that some of the biggest waves you've ever ridden, no one will ever know except the guy that towed you in. Right?
My favorite.
Like, that's so, and that's what I was going to say. That's so cool that that's what you want. And I hope that people really hear that, because I am going to take more courage from having spoken to you to really reflect, like, when I'm doing something that isn't because it's how I want, when I want, the way I want, right? It's because I'm trying to get external feedback to please somebody else, whatever the case may be. But those aren't invisible moments. You know when you're doing it, you're just not acknowledging it, and you're not recognizing the missed opportunity to be brave, to say, this is the way I'm going to do it, right? And then if there are consequences, I accept that. I'm not doing it to be impetuous. I'm just doing it to really find that authentic moment in myself, to be creative, and to have a beautiful experience.
The irony of that is, which there's a saying which I have to appreciate, which is, what you do in private, I reward you openly in public.
For sure.
Love that.
It's fantastic.
So what you do when no one's looking, you'll get rewarded for when everybody's looking.
Right.
And so, in a way, don't think that it's not because everybody's not looking when you're doing it that you won't be rewarded for it. It doesn't mean that's why you do it that way. But just remember,
no, spiritual statements like that are fascinating, because they're getting at they're getting at a deeper truth, right? It's not necessarily a literal, like, hey, you're gonna be acknowledged. It's if you're finding that thing centered in you, you're doing something beautiful, not because anybody's watching, but because it is beautiful. Like, that will be a reward. Other people will pick up on it. So
yeah, they'll smell that. And listen, a big part of what my mom taught me at a young age is if you as long as you tell the truth, you always remember what you said.
Yeah, mom's a smart woman. So true. All right, last quote. I saved this one. This is my favorite. Don't let your memories become bigger than your dreams.
The anonymous stuntman quote, I have to say. I love that.
It's so great. And you acknowledged that it wasn't your quote when I came across it, but I had never heard it before, so thank you for introducing it to me. But what does it mean to you?
Well, just don't live in the past. That live in the future. Be and do what you want to become. And only tomorrow will be, and today is right now. So, and when I look at it, I go, okay, I know so many people that, well, back in high school, man, I was the guy and big thing, and here, have another beer. Come on, let's go again. It's like, and the guy, their apex of their life was the, that they were the king and queen of homecoming, and it's like, wow, buddy, you still got 80 more to do.
Right.
You got 80 more hard ones, man. You better shift a gear, otherwise it's gonna be a long descent. Right. Into the hole instead of just an ascent, and that's something that really rang true to my heart. That no matter what I've done, no matter that the things that I want to do and the things that my dreams are going to be way bigger than the things I've done, and they always will be. And as soon as they start not being, I got to recalibrate. I got to be, oh yeah, wait a second, no, the possibilities are endless,
What's your definition of a life well lived?
Oh, well, I think a life well lived is one that has experienced a lot of different things, and a life well lived is one that lives with honor and truth and loyalty and love and compassion. And if you didn't experience those, what that's like to live that way, then you kind of miss the purpose.
Laird, thank you so much for being on this. It was absolutely incredible, man.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Guys, I hope that you were as impacted as I was. It's not often that I let myself go completely off the rails to really explore something that I haven't thought about privately, but I was really, really impacted by that notion of finding your truth in an experience and allowing yourself to believe that sometimes the world is working for you. But the one thing, if I could sum this experience up for me, it's about experience. It's about getting new experiences and allowing yourself to actually be present and experience the things that you're actually already doing. The notion of putting fear in its place is incredibly powerful to me, and that you can transform yourself from scared to understanding the usefulness of fear in order to create artistic expression, even on the face of a wave that is 100 feet tall. It's absolutely incredible. Dig into this man, you will find quote after quote after quote of stuff to live by. It's all powerful, but I will leave you with the one that he just left us with. Never let your memories become bigger than your dreams. Laird, where can we find you?
At the beach.
That's good. Nice.
A couple different places. LairdHamilton.com is an easy one, but I'm in the electronic universe out there in a couple different spots. XPT has a beautiful site that we're launching, and if you find Gabby, you find me. Hopefully, if you find her, you find me. But if you find her, you find me, or if you find me, you find her. So
perfect. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. This is weekly. We will be bringing you more amazing people. And then you can follow us at Inside Quest. Until next week, my friends, be legendary. Take care. Laird, thank you so much.
Thanks.
What a pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thank you.